When growing up, even though I wasn't from the generation of Linkin Park's explosion, hearing stuff from the band was a constant that was always around, because there was literally always someone who liked it or listened to it regardless of where you were. Whether at a party, on the radio randomly, or that edgy cousin who had a room full of posters and called himself a three-letter word. So, for a long time, just like for me, for a lot of people, Linkin Park was something that existed, and you were always aware of it, even if you weren't even a fan of the music genre. And one of the biggest proofs of this was its large presence in AMVs. Of course, as anyone who was growing up in the internet in the middle of the 2010s, of course one of my first videos that I tried to make was an AMV, just awful jeez. But anyway, it wasn't with Linkin Park music, so I missed the opportunity. But in the end, how did these two things came together? I mean, everyone is more than aware that Linkin Park goes with AMV, just like Jack Black goes with just like Creeper goes with Omen. Yes. So how does this all happen? Well, for that we have to go back to the beginning of it all. In 1816, the first camera was created. Oh, the whole world has already made these jokes. Stop. Okay, sorry. The word Linkin Park didn't exist yet. We are now at the turn of the millennium. I leave it to your imagination whether I was already born or not. The Californian band was in that. We are called Zero, Hybrid Theory, nah. Chester walks past Lincoln Park, and that sounds cool, but it's expensive to buy the rights to that name. Vrow! Linkin Park appeared, and even though it's not the name of the band anymore, now being the name of the album, Hybrid Theory also appeared. Regardless of what you say is the name of their style of music. Certainly in the 2000s were the peak of that style of music, and Hybrid Theory, coming with most of the most famous songs not only from the band, but from the rest of the world as well. A whole community formed around this atmosphere. The songs were so popular that they were appearing in everything from series, movies, MTV, and CDs were leaving the stores like water. But something else was happening almost from day one. At that time, a huge internet boom was happening. The forums ran wild. Napster was still relevant. YouTube wouldn't exist for a few years. And of course, anime fans were already mixing the two, music and anime. Because just like Rule 34, if there is something in the world too, someone will stick anime into the mix. Hybrid Theory launched in October 2000, and it didn't even take a year to have some AMVs being made. In December there was already a Final Fantasy AMV with paper cut in the background, but obviously using Dragon Ball on November 14th, that is much earlier. Neil Gohan released this on his website dedicated to this kind of thing. It even still had the Cartoon Network watermark. Using Cure for the Itch, if you understand what's going on in the middle of this 3-pixel quality, this is the first Linkin Park AMV posted. I imagine that the original quality was a little better, because the guy was happy to have gotten high quality clips and 30 FPS. The 2000s never changed, but it didn't even take a month for the words of Linkin Park and AMV to come together. But it's that thing, right? The AMV archive is not very reliable, especially when it comes to dates. This Neo Gohan video may have come a little later, but certainly at the very least, it was one of the first. But even so, the chance of having another AMV that came before it is very high, because already Hybrid Theory came out in October 2000, but some songs from the album were released a little before the album itself, like One Step Closer came out in August 2000, so there's a small chance there's some AMV out there that's even older than literally the band's debut album, but I couldn't find it, like this one, which say it's from June 2000, but there's no video recording or anything. Can you believe it? Nah, because there are several of these types. From July 12th, this one, the song and the dates match, but there's no video to confirm it or anything. And even if it's posted on YouTube later, you can't be really sure if it really came out on that date they say here at the archive. And how about this one from May 6, 1988? Amazing. But regardless of which one came first, mixing Chester giving its screams with Goku giving his screams was already something normal literally since its beginning. AMV was something that existed before all this, of course, but it took Linkin Park to have its explosion in the early 2000s, revolutionizing the entire genre and impressing the minds of many young people at the time. After Dragon Ball came Bleach, Naruto, any legal anime that had something a little more edgy. Stick Linkin Park in it and was difficult to come out bad. In fact, it didn't even need to be edgy. It fits almost literally in any anime and it's fine. But the situation didn't just help the AMV side. It was such a big thing that it also helped a lot in the band's initial boost. And you can see these influences in several of their future works. Or do you think that the video for Breaking the Habit is just a coincidence? That thing there was made by the same studio as NHK Yokoso. Yeah, crazy, right? In an interview with Crunchyroll shortly after releasing the album Post Traumatic, Mike himself spoke about this.
When Linkin Park first started becoming popular, it was kind of the early days of people editing their own videos together. And so you'd see like Dragon Ball Z edited together, Naruto edited together to Linkin Park, like in the end.
Cool that even the video for In the End is inspired by Princess Mononoke. I will leave the interview there in the description in case you want to see the whole thing. And of course his favorite AMVs are from Naruto. And what are you thinking, bro, when YouTube emerged? What do you think powered the site at its inception? Of course it was the AMVs. Legal kids spending the whole afternoon watching Goku punch Vegeta, Gaga vs Rock Lee, Ichigo vs Kenpachi, for hours and hours and hours to the sound of Disturbed, Papa Roach, Green Day, Sum 41, Blink, and especially Linkin Park. And a lot of people literally got to know this band's sound through AMVs. Don't even try to hide it because it's the truth. And even though we make fun of that time until we can't do it anymore, it's nostalgic to think that these Lego videos that were often poorly edited provoked so many emotions in us simply by showing something that meant something in our lives alongside a song that shouldn't but fits very well in the situation. It's a part of the internet that existed, no matter how much everyone tries to erase some pretty cringe memories. AMV's Linkin Park came and marked the lives of everyone who was present there, and it was a form of expression. Songs that were not only the soundtrack of some people's lives, but also became the vehicle for creativity in the mix of both things. Because there's no better way to express yourself emotionally than a Super Saiyan transformation while everything you say to me plays in the back. And all of this became synonymous with the internet culture at the time. Something that started there simply without much support in the early 2000s became a giant in the community, an integral part for those who liked anime and for those who liked Linkin Park. Something truly timeless in the most dated way possible. But along with the evolution and maturity of the quality of AMVs, at a time when the art became even more diluted and that some users reached the peak of mastery, where some MMVs already transcended the genre and became a sensational art of animation. After some time, this constant in everyone's lives began to disappear. Little by little, for one reason or another, the video model we call AMV began to disappear, and in parallel, the ubiquitous existence of Linkin Park was also losing its popularity, saturation, sameness, lack of interest, attempts to change, old generations growing up and new ones failing to replace. You wouldn't always talk to a 14-year-old anymore and they would know what Linkin Park is. Everything has its peak and everything has its fall. Although the middle of the 2000s was an explosion, the 2010s continuing the legacy. When arriving in the second part of the decade, it was as if everything had already disappeared, and it was as if everyone didn't even care about it anymore. AMVs weren't even close to the face of the anime community anymore. Linkin Park suffered with each release to the point that the supposed fans themselves turned against the band and left them under immense pressure, until the day you obviously know came. Something very sad that shouldn't have happened, and after that, the band was left in a limbo of what should be done. With all respect to the rest, but Mike and Chester were the band, and how can it continue without one of them? And it stayed that way for a long time. What step would have to be taken from now on? Will Linkin Park receive its ending? A few years after what's happening, we received a solo album from Mike about the whole situation and how he was dealing with the loss of someone so important to his life, also with several influences and references to anime. We also received some appearances in other bands and some songs that were recorded years ago but had to be cut from the old album for some reason or another. That despite having some AI videos that were kind of stumpy, you can see that some of the prompts to generate the images was anime, but something happened which at the time we didn't really understand the real meaning. Thank you very much Alvili for this legendary moment. If it weren't for her, maybe a lot of people wouldn't even know that he was at the Arcane launch event. But okay, what is Mike Shinoda doing in Arcane stuff? Okay, although his legacy shows that he's very interested in these things, animation, Twitch, to the point of going to illustration school, it's a bit unusual. I wouldn't say that Mike is one of those random Hollywood encounters like Snoop Dogg, where these people appear out of nowhere in random places with nothing to do with it. But over time it would become obvious why he was there, whether it was after that it was developed or whether it was already under development. At the time we may never know, but after a few years with a sudden teaser they were back and everything became obvious. And so with the insane return of Linkin Park, including the world's music, which despite not being an anime was animation, something was also coming back with full force after being dormant for years and years. After a long sleep, AMVs were also back to carry on their legacy with Linkin Park. Like butter and toast, when one rises, so does the other. And now after many years, although it will never reach the same levels as the icons of the 2000s, the AMV revolution is back. And so with the reintroduction of Linkin Park into society, after overcoming a huge loss along the way, AMV are here suffering a revolution once again. If I had a coin for every time Linkin Park revolutionized the world of AMVs, I would have two. It's not much, but it's crazy that happens twice.